Hey, folks. We're going to give people a minute or two to join the meeting. If you all get a chance to make sure that you're muted, but if you can turn your camera on, that would be great. This is kind of exciting.
Ooh.
Wow. If you all get a chance to make sure that your name is the way you want it to appear. If you haven't done it before, there's 3 dots on the upper right-hand part of your screen. When you click that, it lets you rename as one of the options. So you can throw your name in however you want to be called today. We sometimes have kids get on and they've got their parents' names, and that makes them uncomfortable when we call them by their parents' names. Aline, I assume your name is Aline, so when we get to talk, I can just go there. Great. Hello, Carla. Allison, Felix, D. Brett, is that you? Get your name on your screen, man.
It is, John.
Oh, Brett, your screen looks great. My screen doesn't show me your name, but there it is. Okay, cool. So we've got enough folks to start. I can't tell you how delighted I am that we're able to welcome you to Putney's alumni panel for admissions. We have 4 to 5 alumni, depending upon how you count them. And they are from a wide range of years at Putney. I think you'll learn a bit about Putney as you hear their stories, and perhaps more than anything, when you get a chance to converse with them. I'm so honored and delighted to get to work with an alum on my team. Brian Courier, class of 05, will be facilitating and moderating. Some of you who've been with us before have seen Brian's pleasant face. But I'm gonna pass the baton on to him and try to keep my, my own mouth shut and my own mic muted. But alums, thank you so much for being with us. And visitors, thank you so much for being interested in continuing your learning journey about this really extraordinary school. Brian?
Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks so much, John. Like John said, my name's Brian, and I'm from the class of 2005 and was at Putney all 4 years, and now I get the pleasure of working on the admissions team here, which has really been kind of a dream to come back to Putney, and it's nice to be on this team helping other people kind of experience what I went through. So the big goal for today is to introduce you all to a variety of alum, and then they'll introduce themselves, and then you'll have a chance to ask some questions, and it should be pretty conversational, relaxed time. So what we'll do, if we'll have our alums go around, and I want them to start off with talking about who they were before Putney, kind of what role they took at Putney, and then if they feel like the school has influenced them to where they are now. So Nakomo, you want to start us off?
Okay, can you just repeat that question? You're asking where we were? And
yeah, so like who were you before Putney?
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
What did you get out of Putney, and then what have you been doing since?
Okay, so before I got to Putney, I was a proud New Yorker from Brooklyn, New York, and an academic achiever, but my form of academic achievement was to just get as high grades as I possibly could. It was an obsession and a sport for me. I was a little bit into music, but I didn't really have a lot of access beyond our out-of-tune piano. And we were in an apartment building, so we couldn't play it too much because, you know, everyone in the building heard it because it was, you know, they heard it right by the hallway. And then it was New York in the late 80s, early 90s. So I didn't go out very much. I spent a lot of time at home watching television and reading. And after Putney, first of all, you know, I'm an adult, so that happened. But then also music is a huge part of my life, and travel. So I'm not really, I mean, now everyone's kind of a homebody, but I travel to different countries specifically to sing in different traditions around the world. I've been to Corsica, I've been to Bosnia, I've been to Croatia, I've been to, where else did I go to? Oh, the Republic of Georgia. And that also kind of started at Putney too, is where I learned about singing world music and about world music traditions. And I'm actually sort of friends, like, not, I wouldn't say close friends, but strong acquaintances with not Lee Brewer, Lee, I forgot his last name, I still know his Lee, who did the documentary Amandla, which is about South African music singing. And I might go to South Africa soon to do some music singing, some singing there. So I both travel, do a lot of music as a hobby, and am not a grade grubber. Actually, now I'm a teacher. I teach public school in New York City. And I think being more interested in what I was learning as opposed to the grades I got from learning helped me to do well enough as a student to ultimately, not ultimately since I'm now older than that, but to attend Stanford. And I think that not being obsessed with grades and being more interested in just what I was doing in the classroom helped me with that, specifically when it came to writing. The admissions people actually wrote back to me and said that I'd written a very good essay, which was fun to happen. So that was a long answer, but I hope that helped.
Yeah, that's great. Can you touch on a little bit about that transition of, you know, being obsessed with your grades and then being in an environment where there isn't that competition, or not necessarily competition, but there isn't like the, you know, letter grades available to you?
Well, at first it was a little bit difficult because I didn't really know how to engage with material without being told that I was doing it right. And so at first I would beg my teachers to tell me what grades I was getting. And one teacher told me one time, and then I went around telling everybody about it. They're like, that's not going to happen again. And so, so I didn't ask anymore, and they didn't offer to tell me anymore. And over time, as it became less and less of something I could access, I had to start finding my worth as a student from other things. Like, am I feeling intrigued by this? Am I feeling moved by this? How is it connected to what I'm doing in my other classes, or just in my life, or just the, you know, the big, deep thoughts that all adolescents think all the time. I wouldn't say that, you know, all of my classes always tickled every part of my brain, but certainly the idea that it was a possibility, and that it wasn't just about what was the red mark I was going to get, helped change me as a person and as a student.
Cool. What'd you study at Stanford?
I studied a few different things. I graduated in an election year, I think. Yeah, I graduated in an election year, or not. But I was thinking about, or I entered an election year. I was thinking a lot about political science, then I thought about public policy, and then ultimately I made my way back to English because I've just found out that all the classes I was taking for fun turned out to be actually a major. It just ended up that way. But I also have a lot of political science. And I also took quite a few actually music courses while I was there too. I would have minored, I think, in music, but those classes are really early in the morning.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Acadia, do you want to talk about your story and where you are now? So who were you before Putney, and kind of what were some of the big things at Putney that led you to where you are now?
Yeah, for sure. First, if you hear any like weird noises, I now attend drama school, and there is a voice class happening in the bedroom of my roommate, so that might be present. But I'm Acadia. I graduated in 2018, so I'm a junior in college, and I go to University of North Carolina School of the Arts. They're a drama conservatory studying theater directing. before Putney, I think I similarly was very driven overachiever. And I was very obsessed with brand of school as well. With anything I could get my hands on in terms of other people validating my intellect, and kind of stumbled upon Putney and was not super happy with like, was grungy and like farm, and I don't want to do that. I want to be preppy, and I want to be whatever idea I had about smart, successful people. That's where I wanted to be. And I think not having grades and being in the humans curriculum for the freshman year, which was messy in its interdisciplinary ideas, and like you kind of had to figure out everything as it was connected to something else. There wasn't straight and narrow compartmentalization of the of meaning. It was very focused in the proliferation of meaning and the exploration. And so it kind of metaphorically, and for me then unfortunately physically, made me get dirty. And I hated it and loved it at the same time. And so I think through my evolution at Putney, I was able to find a lot more self-validation around my intellect, and explored subjects that I don't think I ever would have considered or associated with myself. I was very much English, history, and arts. And then through Putney, kind of fell in love with science. And now a lot of the art that I'm focusing on is more in that direction than anything. So that's been super interesting. So I think coming out of Putney and finding myself in a very focused discipline, again with small classes and hyper intense on like one thing, it really allowed me to find quite a wide range of interest, and how I made sense of myself, because I'm doing this really specific thing, but I actually still completely think of myself as a scientist in a rehearsal room, and a mathematician, and a painter, even though I'm not like technically doing any of those things. That's all very present for me. And I don't think I ever would have focused on theater in the way that I have, or been able to explore it with such depth without having gotten a little dirty and done farm work and put my hands in the mud, both literally and intellectually.
Cool. Can you talk about what it was like to make that decision to go to a school that's focusing on theater versus, being able to follow more of your passions in a liberal arts school, and what that felt like?
Yeah, absolutely. I was really torn about it for most of my senior year, and I had kind of just found a real interest in medicine my junior year at Putney. So I then felt like kind of very much caught between worlds, and so through the college process, both applications and auditions for me, I kind of ended up needing to make a decision about whether I was going to go full liberal arts, potentially pre-med, kind of a hybrid where I could do a little bit of everything and pick when I got there, or this full-on arts conservatory. And the hybrid model was really interesting to me because it meant that I didn't have to close any doors. But I was pretty certain that it would mean in all of the things that I was interested in, it wouldn't be a very deep exploration or understanding of any of those things. It would just kind of be a surface level because I would be spreading myself very, very thin. And so I think I definitely took a risk. I wasn't sure for most of my first year if I had made the right decision. But I spoke with a couple mentors at Putney and realized that if I didn't give myself the opportunity to actually see how much power I had in this one thing, I wouldn't ever really get to see if I could have. It would have been something that lingered. And I do think that I was only able to make that choice, and that what felt like a huge leap of faith into this abyss was the knowledge that I had the tools from Putney to be somewhat of an autodidact and apply all of these other different modes of learning and interests that I had into whatever this new school wouldn't have given me. And regardless, I mean, the school has been able to give me so much in many different phases, not just artistically, but hugely intellectually as well. But it definitely, like, it gets to a certain point and I have to meet it. And I think that's true anywhere. Like, you only get out of something what you put in, right? And so I think the ability that I developed there to explore everything and dive into and pick and choose and kind of embrace the messiness and approach everything with an interdisciplinary mindset has allowed me not only to zone in really deeply, but have a much broader understanding of everything that I am learning, because I can apply all those different connections from different disciplines.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Acadia. Tori, can you go next? So just so everyone knows, Tori's service is a little spotty, so if she cuts out, just bear with us here. But can you kind of talk about the same thing? Where were you before Putney? Kind of what did you get out of Putney? What roles did you play here? And then how has that led you to where you are today?
Sure, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So before Putney, I, was just a kid that was really interested in building things. I've been working since I was very young with my family, and really wanted to dive more into academics. I, at least, when I went to Putney, at least my experience was I was a little unique in that I was a first generation student, came from a very low income background, and nobody in my family had graduated from high school, college, or graduate school. And so I was really embarking onto this unknown territory by applying to Putney, and was very lucky to get accepted. And my experience at Putney, I think, it was the first time in my life that I was in a community of people that I felt like I could really relate to. Individuals that really saw me for who I was, a curious individual that wanted to better her life, wanted to learn about the greater world around her and see how she could make an impact with, her respective interests and strengths that she would develop at the school. And I was very lucky to get a few things out of Putney. So one was this, going back to the people, this incredible community of thinkers who were curious, who were multifaceted, who were both artists and engineers and scientists, and individuals who I still keep in touch with and that I still learn from. So that was really wonderful for me as a teenager to be part of that very supportive community. I think another thing that I got out of it was the self-efficacy and the community in the classroom. The process-based learning, I think, is incredibly important for a variety of fields, especially in engineering. I think that having not goal-based education, whether it be a final product or a grade, and really focusing and diving in on the process of learning is something that is so important, and that I really benefited from and grew to love, which I think furthered my ability to absorb and thrive within a STEM environment within engineering. And lastly, the hands-on learning, both in the classroom with projects and on the farm as well, was something that I really focused on. And that, working in engineering now, I see a lot of parallels to in terms of navigating ambiguity, in terms of, appreciating the risk-taking, the messiness in that process. And so there were a lot of things that I was able to extrapolate and take out of Putney and still apply to my current life. And so after Putney, I started at Wellesley, ended up at MIT, studied computer science and political science. And I, from there, when I was a student, I was a researcher at Harvard and electoral politics for one of my bands, going to the first Obama campaign in the national headquarters in Chicago, where I was one of his writers. He got elected, obviously, so I was on the presidential transition team, and then the White House. After the White House, I joined Google, which was my original plan before the election. And largely influenced by Putney, I really only worked on R&D and nascent products there. So I worked on Google Glass and then spent about 6 years in virtual and augmented reality before leaving Google after 9 years for Harvard, where I'm currently at for my MBA. And I'm also at a lab at MIT at the Center for Bits and Atoms, where I focus on fabrication. This summer, I focused on product management at Google and machine learning, and that's where I plan to return to after graduation.
Very cool. Thank you. I know you spent a lot of time in the farm at Putney, and have you been able to connect with any animals or work that into your life at all currently?
I wish. I think, you know, Putney's been great because of Harvest Festival and reunions, and I was the graduation speaker last year. I've been able to go back and see Pete and everyone and help out on the farm. But I'm a rock climber, so I see plenty of pets, or rather not pets, animals in the wild through that endeavor. But no, sadly not. But I, you know, look back on the experience of farming really fondly, and you know, undoubtedly all the lessons and experiences I've had from that transfers over to Google.
Yeah, great, thank you. All right, Nat, can you take us away?
Yeah, it's been kind of a crazy morning here. So I'm a reporter with the NPR affiliate in Anchorage in Alaska, and we were chasing this story all morning that our congressman is the oldest congressman, longest serving congressman in the House of Representatives in DC, and he was there were rumors all morning that he'd tested positive for COVID-19, and like 10 minutes ago we got him to say it, and so that was what I've been doing for the past 10 minutes. So I think everything's squared away here. So my name's Nat. I am a Putney School class of 2005. I grew up in kind of rural Maine, and you know, when I arrived at Putney, I think I was a pretty average sort of rural, informed, but not especially engaged or open-minded person with the broader world, and just the kind of, I'm trying to think of the right word here. I don't know, just the sort of different kinds of experiences that people can have in life, and you know, just, you know, did not grow up on a farm, did not grow up doing any particular kind of hard work like chopping wood or anything like that. And so you know, I think I found a lot of people at Putney who were like me, but learned a lot of things at Putney, both sort of in the classroom and outside the classroom, that I think opened my mind about, you know, what life could be about, and what work is about, and sort of, yeah, I don't know, just that I think that there's value in all kinds of different work and all kinds of different experiences. Yeah, made some close lifelong friends. After Putney, I went to Bowdoin College in Maine. Actually spent a couple years. I got into cross country skiing at Putney. Had never really done that before. You can actually see my selection of skis on the wall behind me. But I ended up being a reporter. I wrote about cross-country skiing and other winter sports for a couple of years. Then I went back to school for a master's degree in journalism. And now I've been in Alaska about 7 years, where I work at the, I came up here to work at the Anchorage Daily News, the newspaper here. And then for the past couple of years, I've been working for public radio for the National Public Radio affiliate in Anchorage. And, still feel like some of the value, some of the things that I learned at Putney in the classroom, but, I would say even more just sort of the values about, hard work and valuing different kinds of work and different kinds of people, have really stuck with me. The balance between work and play, and sort of having a well-balanced life and lifestyle. It's all that stuff comes from 4 years I got to spend at Putney. So definitely think about it often, really grateful for it, particularly when I'm out skiing around on the trails here in Alaska.
Nat, I'm going to ask you to go back a long time from now, and I don't know how much you remember it, but were you looking at a bunch of different schools when you were thinking about Putney, and kind of like, were you just, assuming you would go to some type of private school, or were you thinking about the public school? I'm just curious what, you were saying you're just an average student, which I would say you were probably a good student, but just what that process looked like for you.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think, my mom my mom was, at the time when I was in 8th grade, I think my dad probably was a little more easygoing than my mom, who I think was much more concerned about my high school education. And my mom, I think the public school where I lived in Maine would have been a perfectly adequate option. But, I think my mom felt differently. I definitely didn't know any better, or any different. And so we went and looked at, a couple different places. There was a local private high school in Portland, which would have meant, an hour drive each way every day, even during the winter. We looked at sort of a more traditional, kind of prep type high school. And that was not my vibe as, kind of an easygoing kid from rural Maine. And I think Putney felt like just a much more natural and warm and welcoming place. And, I'm sure that anywhere else would have had its own, good folks and nice cultural attributes. But it just, Putney really felt like the one place that was not, close to home, that still felt like it was a place where I could feel at home. So I think that's kind of how we ended up settling on it.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think it's fair for those of you who don't know me. I'll just give you my quick background a little bit. I grew up on a farm in New Hampshire, goat farm. I'm actually 3rd generation Putney, so my grandma and my mom went to Putney, which is pretty cool. So Putney was always in my life. My older brother came here as well. And then after Putney, I went to Bates College. I was really into rowing, which I was introduced to at Putney. Studied environmental science, and then I've been kind of teaching ever since. So I've been working in different boarding schools, semester schools, teaching outdoor ed. And lastly, I was working at the Outdoor Academy, which is a semester school in North Carolina. And I was sending a bunch of students to Putney because they weren't happy with their current school that they were coming from, and wanted something different. So I got to know John really well, and he was like, "You want a job? You're doing admissions already." So it was a nice transition in. So that's the group of alumni that you get to ask all sorts of different questions for, and hear different perspectives, which should be really cool. So what I think has worked really well in the past is if you want to put your name in the chat, and either John or I will call on you and ask. You can ask your question, and we might have a few different alums answer it from different perspective, and we'll just kind of go from there. So we have about 25 minutes just to chat away. So if you have a question, put your name in the chat, and we can go. John, did I miss anything?
No, but I do want to suggest that as you guys are thinking about questions, I'm really interested in how, and I can't be objective, I can't tell what this is like to be you guys. We're really excited about sharing our alums across wide age range. I'd love to hear from you, or in your questions, are you hearing common threads when you hear these very different people with very different careers? Is there something that is coming through that is called Putney in some sense, or not? It's hard to tell. And I also want to give a shout out to Brett, because Brett, I think you're the only student in the room. We've got a lot of parents, which makes a lot of sense. The alumni, are going to be shining a light on futures. But I'm really glad you made it today too. So certainly, if you've got a question, Brett, just dive in there, man. And we can tolerate quiet too. Whoop.
All right, Allison. You want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
I can't unmute. Hi, can you hear me? I can't seem to unmute. Oh, there I am.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. And I tried to put my video on, but it's not coming on for some strange reason. So I would love to hear from the alum. What's the message to a parent about why we should send our 14-year-old daughter off into the woods to this very strange place, and trust that it will all work out on the other end? What if you were talking to a parent, what would the message be?
Yeah, great question.
I can
yeah, Nakomo.
I can honestly say that the main thing, like I didn't mention this before, but I think it's very much true. The main thing I got out of Putney was a sense of self-efficacy, a sense that if I want to get something to happen, then I can just make it happen. I don't sit around and wait for someone to show me how to do something, unless it's, I don't know, some form of astronomy. Astro something, then I will ask for help. But as far as like going out to make sure, like to figure out something, or to learn something, or to meet somebody, my first step is just to try and figure it out, as opposed to feeling like there's no way to do it. So for instance, when I was going to interview at Stanford, I went there and I knew that there was someone at Stanford on the history department that had been somehow related to Putney. I forgot his name now, but at the time, Sven, who was the head of school when I was at Putney, he told me that there's this guy on the history department. And so when I got to Stanford, when I was visiting, they flew me out there, which was awesome. So when I got to Stanford, I was visiting, I found the history department. I figured out where he was, and I went up to there, and he interviewed me for like 2 hours. I was so nervous. I don't even remember any of what he said, but but I knew how to find him. And I actually, I take it back. I did not know how to find him, but I knew that if I wanted to find him, I could find him. Whereas I feel like there'd be a lot of other kids from other schools who would just feel scared and do whatever you were told to do on the pre-designed tour. And Putney has done that for me in a whole lot of ways. In fact, some of my friends recently have been telling me to just calm down, stop seeking out new ways to learn things and new ways to figure stuff out and new ways to take over this thing and that thing and the other, because it's just kind of how Putney sort of built me how to be. I was not one of those people that loved going camping. I'm sorry, I just didn't. I just not like going camping. I did it just like everybody else, but I didn't like it. But what Putney really helped me do was figure out, all right, I got really good at finding ways to get out of camping. I got really good at finding ways to do things that I wanted to do by talking to the right people and finding out what the rules were, finding out how I could bend them, finding out who knew what. And that's a world skill. That's a super world skill. And I got that at Putney. I wouldn't have gotten it the same way if I'd stayed here in New York and gone to Stuyvesant, because there are people that I could talk to help me figure out how things really worked. And I wasn't one of a billion children. I was one of very, very few. So there's your answer.
Push those boundaries. I should also make sure I mention that Nakomo is also on our board of trustees, so which is pretty cool.
Can I chime in quickly?
Yeah,
there?
Please, Nat.
I mean, I think my mom certainly would tell you that she's the last mom that would ever voluntarily relinquish, keeping her high school age children within viewing distance. But I would just add, I think that's a personal decision about whether you're willing to have your kids be somewhere else for 4 years. But I would say if you can bite the bullet, there is no place where you will find sort of a warmer and more loving and caring, welcoming group of folks to entrust your children with. At least sort of that's the way I would describe it.
Can I send her with a helmet and a mouth guard?
Oh, we see you now. Cool. Hi.
Hi. Just in case. Chopping wood.
Yeah.
One of the things my mom said, and the guy at the bookstore near my house, bookstore is not there anymore, is he actually saw me more often when I started going to Putney than he saw me when I was living there. And it's because we're almost kind of like on a college vacation schedule. Not vacation, college kind of schedule. So we're at school for a while, and this is pandemic time, so it's a little different. But we're at school for like a month, but then we'd be home for like 2 or 3 weeks. My mom saw more of me than she ever did. Actually, it wasn't just like an hour when I would like take the dinner tray and like go in my room and shut the door. It was several weeks of hanging out together while I was at Putney.
Yeah, I think I found that I was really excited to have real conversations with my parents too, instead of just, yeah, I'm fine. We have a question in the chat saying, I heard that the self-directed learning style was a challenging transition at first. How did your peers / friends react to this challenge as well? And second, did you make friends easily? And what about cliques and barriers? I was wondering if Acadia, maybe you could hit that just because you were here most recently.
Yeah, take a stab. Yeah, it was, sorry, I'm just reading the question again to make sure. It was a challenging transition because I was so used to being told like what to do and how to do it, and then I could do it to the best of my ability and check that box. I think there's definitely, I mean, like there was people who like coming from more Montessori backgrounds who were kind of already in that mindset. And so taking cues from them was also really interesting to see like how, if there were a couple people in the class that were really running with a discussion, or really, I just like admired their brains so much, I would just cling to them. And then I was starting to find ability in having that conversation with them like at lunch. And then I found the confidence to take that into the classroom. And what's also really cool about Putney, I feel like, is that there's not a lot of divides between the grades. Like, you're interacting with everybody. And so in terms of mentorship around finding yourself in the community, I think there's a really strong connection in that. And so you're also, after, besides like humans first year, I was in classes with sophomores and juniors. And so I was learning how to communicate with people who had a lot more experience in the environment than I did. And so that skill was sharpened quickly. In terms of making friends, I think I was friendly with everybody for a while. Actually, the whole way through, I had like my solid connections, but I really felt like the community allowed me to have literally an interpersonal relationship with every person in my class or every person in the Spanish class. Like, I knew everybody at the school, and I had absolutely talked to everybody. And so there were definitely like friend groups, as there are. I mean, even in my class of 25 people here, like, we have our own friend groups, but there's not, I didn't experience cliques or barriers. It was definitely challenging at times, but there wasn't, it was maybe moments of loneliness or isolation, but not ever exclusivity.
Great. Tori, I was wondering if you could maybe touch on thinking about, the sort of self-directed, progressive education style and how that has transferred into the tech world. Because I have to imagine that you kind of used those skills in pushing and development in engineering.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that there's a few things that we look for when we're hiring new product managers, engineering managers, and software engineers, which I think has a very deep relationship and parallel to Putney. And so first one is something I mentioned previously, which is the ability to navigate ambiguity. A lot of the times you're given hypotheticals, both in your interview and on the job, of, okay, we have this new bug that the user's facing. Clearly the feature that we built is interacting poorly with existing features on our platform. How do we solve this? And a lot of the times the answer is not there. You have to build the answer yourself. And so you're testing out all these theories, you're taking a risk. You have to be very comfortable with that. And I think that's something that you really practice on a daily basis in the Putney classroom. And so having had 3 years of that every day, roundtable discussions, anywhere from calculus physics with Abijah Reed to English, to painting, to even just how are we going to milk the cows when it's 5 a.m. in the dead of winter. You're practicing those over and over. And so I really felt going from studying computer science in college to working at Google that I already had that leg up. And I found that I was, I think, calmer in certain fires, more so than some of my peers my age. And so I definitely felt the difference then. Another thing that I would say is another item we look for in hiring is the ability to collaborate well. I think that anybody who works in engineering knows that you could create a GitHub and go through problem sets all you want. But the real difference between somebody who studies computer science and somebody who programs well is the ability to collaborate well with others. And that's certainly something that we did at Putney all the time, anywhere from in the classroom to doing barn chores, to doing dish crew, to just even taking school meetings together. The spirit of collaboration is really alive in the community, and you have accountability with that. And you learn how to negotiate, compromise. You learn that it's not always about you. And I think those are things that translate so well on the job, because when you're building a product, you're dealing with UX and Eng and SWE and site reliability and data center operations, and you really have to adapt and really listen and tailor all these different requirements into a pipeline. And so I felt like I was definitely practicing that at Putney. And then I think another one is something that I touched upon as well, which is really appreciating the process. To go back to the first question that was asked, I think what makes Putney really special, even more special this day and age, is that I look around and I think about this a lot working in building products. I see 2-year-olds with a cell phone. There's so much that we have now and so much empowerment and democratizing of experiences we have through technology. The idea that you can have an atlas or you can search for something and get an answer within 0.03 seconds. But with that, when you're younger, it can be a bit dangerous because you lose that process of searching and learning and thinking for yourself and really understanding and the subject matter. And I think you practice that actively at Putney. As a Putney student, we were actually encouraged to not rely on technology when we were learning, and I only turned to the computer lab when I was writing a paper, and I feel like that benefited me tenfold because you really, really had to break down an entire stack and problem sets and look at different code changes and code reviews. And if you don't have that focus and the love for process, you're not going to build a great product. And so, another thing that I got really into when I was at Putney is rock climbing as well. I see a lot of parallels between a Putney education, engineering, and that is that it's never really about the goal. The goal's great, but it's how you get there. And I think being a Putney student had really set me up for success and had given me a perspective and a maturity entering STEM that I don't think I would have achieved if I just went to a traditional school.
Great, thank you. Felix, what's your question?
All right, so I have 2 questions. So the first one is, actually, I can do the more general one first. So I'm just wondering how kind of like Putney kind of prepared you guys to kind of create a career out of like your passions, like, being able to create a career through your passions and like being able to follow your passions. I'm just wondering how Putney helped you do that.
Yeah, I think I'll answer real quick and then pass it off to someone else. I think one of the biggest things that I got out of Putney is the ability to say yes and to dream big. My senior year, I did a senior exhibition of building a giant eagle metal sculpture. And I remember the first day, the teacher was sort of like, I proposed that I was going to do a metal sculpture. And I think in his mind, it was going to be small. And this thing has like a 6-foot wingspan or something. It's huge. And the teacher, like, I could see him do a double take. And then he took a deep breath and was like, okay, let's do it. And so to have that encouragement has really changed my life. Later on, I built my own canoe and paddled the Northern Forest Canoe Trail, which is 740 miles long, and then built a bike out of bamboo and biked across the country. And those type of things I would never have believed in myself enough to do without Putney's encouragement that you can follow your dreams and passions. Does someone else want to add on that? How does Putney allow you to follow your passions? What's your second question? Maybe they'll work it in.
Also, thank you for applying to the first question. Okay, so then this one's more to Tori. You had a last question as well. So, so I was just asking because I really like engineering, and I was just wondering in terms of like the opportunities that kind of Putney gives you in terms of like engineering or just like being creative with building stuff and yeah, so stuff like that. Thank you.
Well, looks like Tori, oh, maybe she's back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, why don't you keep your camera off and I think you'll come through a little stronger.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Can you hear me now? I'm on.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. And so just to recap, because I dropped off. Okay, just to recap, because I dropped off, was the question, what resources are available at Putney to help you realize your interest in STEM education and engineering?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Yeah, so I think the great thing about Putney is that there are a plethora of offerings that you can fine tune depending on your actual interest. So if your actual interest is more STEM and engineering based, there's a lot of opportunities for you to pursue that. So the first thing is Project Week. I believe it's the final project at the end of the year. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, is it the end of every semester or is it the end of every year?
We have 2 project weeks now in December and at the end of the year in June.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. So what you can do essentially is it's almost, a small independent study, and you can partner with a teacher and sometimes with another student and really explore a subject matter you would like to eventually build a finished product of, whether it's a prototype and a report on it and defend the thesis of it. And so that really gives you the time and the space to further think about an idea, get the proper academic and mentorship and resources to execute on it. So whether it's a Raspberry Pi project or whether it's a web page, you want to explore front-end engineering, you can do that within that time period. The other thing is Putney has such a wide variety of courses. I really became much more confident in STEM thanks to Putney. I think the small self-efficacy based learning helped with that. So there's a lot of great math and science. There's, I don't know the current course catalog, but there are a lot of very strong STEM offerings as well. And so you're around students who not only are wholly dedicated to STEM education, but maybe they're also artists, maybe they are also dancers, or maybe they want to study agricultural science full time. And so you get that unique perspective in the curriculum as well that might, I think, help you challenge your assumptions and maybe unlock experiences that you ordinarily wouldn't have.
Tori, I'm going to cut you off there because we have 2 more questions I want to try to squeeze in there. And I think that's great that you touched on Project Week, and there are a ton of different course options right now. And we have actually been doing an engineering evening activity lately, which has been pretty cool.
Thank you.
So we have one question that we'll do the 30-second version of, is transition from Putney to college in terms of taking tests and stuff like that. And my 30-second answer is that I did amazing in the seminars, and in the big lectures, I struggled a little more when my grade was purely focused on exams. I'm dyslexic, and I've always been awful at taking tests. So that was me personally. Nakomo, you want to hit that for you? How was that transition in the SparkNote version?
Okay, I'm sorry. I've been having a conversation with one of the attendees. So can you please tell me right quick? Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, just like how did Putney prep you for college, especially thinking about taking tests and maybe more traditional academics?
Okay. Well, we had tests at Putney. It's not like we stopped all test taking. I don't remember the grades I got on tests. I'm sure there must. I just don't remember that very much. But yeah, I was ready. I knew how to study. I think the hardest part really about going to college, it wasn't the material, it wasn't studying, it was really learning about time management, because the day wasn't pre-segmented for me. But that's a very common entry into college issue that kids have. Like, I knew how to fill my days with lots and lots of interesting things to do and go to all the clubs and join all the stuff. I didn't necessarily know how to choose my own bedtime very well, because because, you know, there's lights out at 10 and I used to get up really early to go play piano in the music wing at like 6. But at college, like your schedule can be anything. So I think, but like all the academic stuff wasn't difficult. I didn't have trouble going to office hours, which is usually where people struggle going to college. I didn't have trouble dealing with dorm life. I didn't struggle with the freshman 15 because I already had my freshman 15 when I was 14 years old. Like all of it was, you know, it was the same thing. It was the same thing. I just had to learn how to deal with my schedule.
Great, thank you. And Brett, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sorry, it's not like a big showstopper question or anything, but I was just wondering what it's like moving forward in life after Putney in like subjects more focused on the arts and things like that.
So you cut out on me a little bit. You want to know what it's like moving forward after Putney, especially in the arts? Are you thinking about in college or after college, or?
Like in college, what it's like moving forward with an arts major or something like that.
Acadia, you want to touch on that?
Happy to. Yeah, I think, I mean, I can't speak to what it is to be in a liberal arts university, but studying in like the visual arts school. But definitely I can speak to being in a community of artists coming from Putney. And that, I think I'm absolutely one of the most prepared people coming in my class, because Putney is so artistic in the design thinking explored academically, but also in evening arts. Like everybody has to find an art that they connect with and pursue it. And so I felt really prepared to be around people who thought in less linear ways, as well as communicate with people who were more linear thinkers. And I also had, compared to like my classmates who came from arts high schools, specifically arts high schools, I had a lot more breadth in my understanding of academia and the world, and just how to interact with people outside of the arts as well. I think there's, it depends on the art that you're in, but I think the connection to it from the artist friends that I have that I made at Putney, we all seem to me more rooted. The reason of why we're pursuing it is less about fame or potential success, and really more about community from the other people that I've engaged with at my current school. And so that's definitely been a big piece of it, I think, is it's way community based, and there's a lot of support at Putney to get whatever you need in the arts. To touch back on a different question, I think combine them. I definitely felt like I was in the driver's seat with my arts education at Putney, and could pick and choose how I wanted to explore what I wanted to, and so was able to move forward in a very specific way that none of my other classmates in my graduating class at Putney did for performing arts. And so definitely felt super prepared from Putney, because I was the expert. They allowed me to be the expert and to fail and to lab. And so everybody else in my arts institution here who was coming in with the right or wrong mindset, it was a lot harder for them to learn by their own mistakes. And I was really ready to make those mistakes. And so I got a lot more out of my arts education so far here, because I learned by failing, and that's what they're trying to teach us here. But the people coming in were coming from more rigid high schools. Even the arts high schools were more rigid than what I think Putney was. So I think deeper learning can happen because you've had the Putney education, honestly.
Yeah, that's great. Just from my perspective, real quick, you know, I decided to study ecology because of my Putney teachers, but I also loved ceramics, and so that was something I also took at Bates and just really, you know, dove into. I didn't double major or anything, but it was just something that would be fun. John, I'm going to pass things over to you.
Brian, I'm going to catch things as if things were a ball and I could catch them, except I'm not that good at mine. I just wanted to say thanks to everybody for joining us. I'm especially grateful to our alums for letting us steal your stories and your willingness to converse. You guys are very different folks with different perspectives, but I think some of your lenses are in common because of Putney, and I'm pretty clear that the place draws students and adults and holds on to alums because of some shared values and a shared sense of purpose, which is inspiring to me on an everyday basis, or at least most days. Tuesdays, not always inspired on Tuesdays. Students and parents, I thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited that you guys are making use of these opportunities to learn about this school and this community and its values and its practice, and to start to imagine your way here. Parents, you probably received a note from me after the last session you came to, if you came to one before that I was on, so I'll be sending you another one. I'm compulsive about following up, so I'd really love to invite you to connect with me, connect with any member of the team. If you're already in process, you know how it goes. If we haven't connected before, I hope you'll be responsive, because we'd love to get the season going. Some of you students I recognize and know are already in gear. We're hitting busy season, and our application is due in the middle of January, and it's kind of time to get those teacher recs out. So there's work to do, and we're happy to help you do it. More than anything, I hope you realize how absolutely dedicated we are to making sure that you understand our school and that you get a chance to try it on and see how it feels, see how it looks in the mirror, see how it looks to one another. We really want you to check the place out without any constraints, because we only want kids and families here who are excited about what we have to offer, and what we have to offer is really unusual and special, as you can see in the lives of these alums, even my colleague Brian. And I'm just teasing you, my friend. Anyway, thank you all so much. We will honor the late time boundary. Hey, Sarah, it's good to see you on the screen. We'll honor the late time boundary by letting you go, but please do be in touch. Don't be shy. And I hope you got your questions answered, but if you didn't, just shoot me an email, please. And Laura, thank you so much. Okay, so you guys all be well. And oh, we forgot to tell you that this is recorded. We're only holding on to it in case there were folks who didn't get to show up. We're supposed to ask you permission in the beginning. If you have a real problem with it, I happen to be a professional film editor, and I'll happily go in and cut every part of you out if you need me to. But if not, we're good. So thank you guys so much. Thanks for tolerating my humor. Bye.